Can we shift a little bit to some of your philosophy on leadership?
I'll say this. I think you have to be right alongside your people. Goodness, maybe 125 years ago during the Industrial Revolution, everything could be top down and dictated and say you have to be here from 7 to 3, you're working that shift, or you have the late night shift from 11 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's not where you're going to get the most out of people, and certainly not where they're going to develop the most either. I think you have to know your craft incredibly well, even the nuances. Certainly strategically there has to be a vision, but even tactically, they know if you know your stuff. And again, I just can't say enough about getting to know each individual human being too.
Welcome to the Long Blue Leadership Podcast, presented by the U.S. Air Force Academy Association and Foundation. These are powerful conversations with United States Air Force Academy graduates who have lived their lives with distinction. All leaders of character who candidly share their stories, including their best and worst moments, the challenges they've overcome, the people and events that have shaped who they are, and who willingly lend their wisdom to advance your leadership journey. Your host for this edition of Long Blue Leadership is Navir Walkowitz, USAFA class of 99, currently serving the Association of Graduates as Senior Vice President of Alumni Relations and as a member of the AOG Board of Directors. And now, Navir Walkowitz.
My guest today is Air Force Academy head football coach Troy Calhoun, USAFA class of 89. Coach Calhoun can easily be considered a game changer and trailblazer, shaping the world of sports, leadership, and beyond. He is the very dynamic head coach of the Air Force Falcons football team and a 2023 recipient of the Association of Graduates Leadership Achievement Award. Known for his innovative approach and unwavering commitment, Coach Calhoun has led the Falcons through remarkable seasons, transforming them into a formidable force in college football and as warfighters. With a career that spans over a decade at Air Force Academy, Coach Calhoun has earned a reputation for building resilient teams and cultivating emerging leaders, using his blend of discipline and inspiration. We'll walk through his journey from his days as a child to becoming a cadet, then on to coaching and the challenges and triumphs he's experienced in and out of sports. We'll explore his unique strategies, his philosophy on leadership, and what it takes to succeed at the highest levels. This promises to be an insightful and engaging conversation with one of the most respected figures in football and leadership. Coach Calhoun, welcome to Long Blue Leadership.
Well, thank you, Navir, and what an honor it is to be a part of your show.
Well, this is an honor for us, and I think what our listeners really appreciate about each of our guests is they kind of know a little bit about them, but once they start to learn about your paths and your journey, I think they really find ways to connect with you. So we hope that this will continue that trend so that they feel just as connected to Coach Calhoun as we do.
We sure hope so.
Absolutely.
So let's kick it off,
okay.
Right?
Yes, let's do it. So, Coach, the way we like to start is we like to roll back the dial. We go back to when you were a child. What were you like as a child? Where did you grow up? Things like that.
I grew up in Southern Oregon. Ironically, we settled in a town. It was a lumber town, which at that time was very labor intensive. My dad was a high school teacher and a high school coach. My mom raised the kids, and as soon as the kids started grade school, myself and my younger sister, she went and got a 2-year nursing degree and then worked as an emergency room nurse.
Wow. So you guys have just a family of service. I mean, really.
That's exactly it.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times I heard my mom say, we'd ask Mom, hey, Mom, don't you know it's a holiday? It's Thanksgiving. It's, you don't have to go to work today. And she said, no, you got to go serve the people.
Wow.
And the way that resonates now when you look back, and to have that kind of figure that way was very inspirational, still is.
Right. Oh, that's wonderful. I can imagine that. So what were some of the experiences like in the Calhoun household then when you were a child?
My dad, obviously being a coach, he knew so much about every sport, whether it was basketball or baseball, and
He coached all
track for a while.
sports?
He really did,
Wow.
a good number of them. So myself and my younger sister, we both played all kinds of sports. It was year round. It was wiffle ball in our front yard, or it was we learned how to pole vault at a really young age, which is
Wow.
hard to do. We paved a little cement area, and we had a basket on each end, so we were always playing 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 basketball.
So who would win, your sister or you?
Oh, she'd tell you she always won, but it was just unbelievable upbringing that way.
Right. Oh my goodness. So you're in sports. No one in your family was serving in the military, though. So how did that even, touch your family and your life?
Great question. My mother had 3 brothers. This was in the early 60s. They were around 20, 22 years old,
Okay.
and each enlisted.
Okay.
One in the Marines, one in the Navy, and one in the Army.
Wow.
And so we really thought, well, that's about the extent of it. And at the beginning of my senior year of high school, I got a call from the Air Force Academy, one of the football coaches, and shared a little bit about the academy. And I really, to be
Hadn't even heard
candid,
of it.
I had no idea. I really didn't.
Right.
And so my mom goes into work the next morning and asked one of the ER docs, who was also in the reserves, and said, hey, there's this place called the Air Force Academy that called Troy last night, but I really would like for him to go somewhere where he can get an education. Do you know anything about the place? And immediately one of the docs said, Joan, if he has that opportunity, you have to make him go. And she took it literally to heart.
Wow. Good thing, right?
Yeah. And ironically, 2 years later, my sister also came to the Air Force Academy too.
Really? Wow. Truly connected. Wow. So let's talk about that. So your mom kind of helped facilitate that, encouragement. And what did that look like? So you came out here. What was that experience like?
The very first day I arrived here was the first day of basic training, which
Really?
is not the way to do it.
So you knew you were coming for football, but you had not been here yet.
I had not, because I played 3 sports in high school. I played football, then you went right into basketball, and you went right into baseball. In the summers, it was all 3. It was baseball in the evenings, playing games. You'd have football workouts in the afternoon, and I ran the YMCA basketball camp in the morning for younger kids. And so, yeah, day one of arrival here was July 5th, the morning of July 5th, 1985. And the first 4 days, I'm just telling you, I thought, no way.
I'm out.
How do I get out of here? And I just vividly recall whether you're brushing your teeth or shaving, thinking, there's no way. And then I got to thinking, your mom's an ER nurse in an area where there are a lot of significant accidents, because it was the lumber industry, whether it was, trees falling, accidents at the mill, just all kinds of different things. And I remember once in a while she'd come home, you thought, oh goodness, she had a real game that day. Yeah. It's not one of those where the ball bounces one way or the other. And I thought, there's no way you can call home and say, nah, this isn't for me.
Right. So that makes sense. You develop that deep resilience. You saw it from your mom. So I want to talk, before we go into the academy, let's talk about, you had that great family. It was shown to you, it was embodied through your mom, through your dad, and obviously you and your sister. Were there any other leaders that inspired you, your own coaches as well, or just teachers?
Yeah, absolutely. I was blessed to have some really, really outstanding teachers. I don't know why. Math was always a strength, which I think helps while you're here at the academy.
It might help a little bit.
A good bit, they jump you right into calculus and then Calc 2, and then later on it's Aero and it's Astro. But the other part was to have teachers that taught you the value of history, to understand yesterday.
Right.
And we're always living to make the most of the present in the moment and what kind of vision we can put forth for the future. But to learn from some of the mistakes in the past, to learn from the good things in the past, just to know where that can be applied as we move forward too. And I'd have to say my high school football coach was incredibly influential. Ran an incredible program where not only did they win a lot, but more importantly than the result were the standards, the discipline, and more than anything else, just the attention to detail and the unselfishness for what was required and he demanded in terms of the teamwork.
So you actually were living the life of a cadet as a high school football player.
I tease people about this when I'm asked back home once in a while, and I say, all those times you were lining up just to go through, getting through the first 10 minutes of practice, which was stretching, where you couldn't put your toes on the line. They had to be just behind it. I said, after playing for Coach Thurman Bell in high school, really, basic training wasn't all that hard. So absolutely I do.
I love that. Okay, so the academy recruited you for football. You showed up and, you made it through basic training. So let's talk a little bit about your life as a cadet, because I think we appreciate this about our athletes. We've had a chance to talk with Carl Falk, who is also, on the team. And I think what's interesting is there's more to the cadet life than just one facet. And so while I think athletics is a huge part of it, what were you like as a cadet? What were some of your experiences?
I actually did really, really well on the MPA part of it. I think the academic end took me a little bit of time, to be frank. Now end up making the dean's list, towards the end of, my time here at the academy a few times. And yet just, you learn the value of time management. We're all blessed with the ability to make good choices, to be disciplined, to work hard. We all have that talent. And I think that's a key part of moving forward to coaching. You realize how important that is to share with young people. Yeah, that's in there. Now we got to tap into it. And certainly here at the academy, it's just invaluable, all those intrinsic qualities that I think come to the surface. And I certainly felt that way. In a good number of, facets were just how transformational it was for you as a human being.
Right. So some of our listeners are early in their leadership journeys. And so I think they're at a period of time where maybe there's more peer leadership. Can you share some examples when you're a cadet? What did that look like to you? And where did you maybe struggle or soar?
I'll say this, during the 4-degree year, I was fortunate enough to be with the older guys and to travel a good bit. And so you naturally looked up to some of those juniors and seniors and those older players and the older cadets too. I think the part that was it made such an imprint while you were here was really the strong interest that older students took, in this case, older cadets, their first year, 2-degree year, their juniors or seniors in college, but how committed they were to younger grades. Because candidly, you rarely experience that maybe when you're in high school or even on other teams. And I thought that's so incredible, where the older guys want to help the younger guys on your team, or the older cadets truly do, the way they're invested and how much they care about the younger generation.
Right. Was there one in particular that kind of took you under his wing, that there's something that you carry with you now in the way that you lead? Or are there probably many?
I had so many. They were teachers. I think that was the other part that was absolutely awesome. I think we both felt this at times, maybe in different ways. The commitment of our faculty here at the academy, to be able to go get extra instruction.
Right.
You complete a quiz and maybe you didn't do real well on that quiz, and the instructor comes to you and says, hey, let's find a time where we can get together. And I think we know how unique that is in higher level education in this day and age, because there are a good number of universities where the classroom size may have 250 or 300 students, or there may be a teaching assistant or a graduate assistant. But here, the expertise and truly the commitment to the cadets, it just made it even more inspiring to say, all right, I want to be a good student while I'm here. You
actually are seen and felt in the classrooms here for sure. So you saw some of your upperclassmen really kind of pouring into you. How did that translate in your leadership as a cadet, either on the field or off?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I think, not only, while you're a young person growing up, whether it's in your home, playing sports, or you're working in a job, or you're in your squadron during your time in Vandenberger's side, John, you see so many different ways to lead or to have impact. And a lot of good. And honestly, there are some times where you say, no, that might not be the most effective way to reach and to encourage and to mentor somebody. And I try like crazy to learn from everybody, because no matter what the encounter is or the experience may be, let's pull from it.
Right. Is there anything from when you were a cadet that you carry now with you as a coach and leader? An immense amount. I think more than anything else, you have to do everything you possibly can. And it's no way can you put yourself in the souls of each person, right,
but to realize that every human being is a unique individual. Are we trying to build teams? Absolutely. But we're trying to bring the most to tap into those talents of each person and to do everything we can to help them sprout.
Right. Well, I think I can share firsthand with our listeners. I've had the great honor of listening to you introduce your team, introduce, your coaches. And I think what's so impressive about you is it's beyond just their name and maybe some of their stats, but you know them as people and you know them as how they are in their families. And I think that translates really, really well to all those pieces you just spoke to.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll tell you this. I want to know them as deeply as you possibly can. And
right.
I think in order to be the most effective for our team's sake, again, it's got to be person by person.
Right.
And I truly believe in this day and age, it's easier to reach a young person than it's ever been. And that not everybody would agree with that. And I say that from the standpoint, we all do. We spend so much time looking at a monitor or a phone or, that whenever we have real human interaction and there's sincerity, there's a genuine feeling where this person's trying to help me grow as a leader, grow as a person, do a little better academically and realize the value of education, or help me develop as a better football player too.
Right. So and this, just to kind of dig into that a little bit more, I think part of leadership is being able to have conversations which are that help people grow, right? And sometimes that's, hey, this is a good fit for this is not a good fit for you. How when you were a cadet did you navigate some of those conversations that's translated over time? Because I know a lot of our listeners feel like that's one of the biggest challenges in leadership. It's great when things are great, but when things aren't, how do we navigate that?
Well, honesty. Yes. If you provide me, it may be critical, but I know you're doing it to help correct or to improve. You got me,
right.
And right. I think the other part is to have a forever appetite and thirst to learn and to grow. And I think when that's really your heart, your mindset, that you're completely open to understanding various viewpoints that will help you do exactly that.
Right. Well, I think that's powerful for people to really intake, because especially when it's coming from a place of care. And I think that's what we're in the business of. And being open to feedback is really critical for leadership. So I'd like to transfer to when you graduated from, well, actually, before we do that, your sister was here. How were you as a cadet supporter of her?
She had an amazing 4 years here at the Air Force Academy. She graduated number one in her major academically. Was a 10-time All-American distance runner in track and cross country, won 6 NCAA championships as a runner. Her senior year, she was the NCAA champion in cross country, and then won 5 other national championships in indoor and outdoor track. And, She teases her brother a little bit.
I can imagine.
It says, you must suffer from big brother syndrome or older brother syndrome. I say, cool it, young lady. But, she made the utmost of the cadet, the academy experience. And truly, in so many ways, I looked up to my younger sister, and I still do.
Well, I understand now why you chose baseball. But so let's talk about when you graduated. What was the early years of post-graduation like for you?
Yeah, what I did, I stayed for 1 year here at the academy as a graduate assistant football coach and also taught a PE class. And I remember thinking initially, well, this will be kind of neat. You'll let down a little bit after you've been at the academy, but it was an awesome leadership experience. And, the mentorship, the interaction, especially with while we're the new cadets or new basics, we're going through basic training. During that 4-degree year, being able to help them plan their schedule academically or teach them how, if they have better footwork for this particular call, they'll execute a play a little bit better, or just interacting with them as people. My goodness, you realize, just the various backgrounds, the interests, maybe the motivational levels too, because that's real. The different strengths in terms of skills and talents. That was where you realized, oh my goodness, as a leader, as a coach in this case, how helpful you can be.
Is that when the seeds were planted for you that you knew you wanted to coach Falcon football down the road?
That wasn't the plan. It really wasn't. In fact, I really wanted to go to pilot training.
Okay.
And
so after that first year, what happened?
Well, you have your physical late in your junior year. It was March of your 2-degree year. And at that time, they said there's a little bit of distance concern. And we didn't have LASIK or PRK,
right.
And so you end up taking a little different path naturally.
Right. I see. So after you did the year here, kind of teaching and also supporting the team, what did you do?
I worked in management information systems in the Air Force. And specifically, it was a program where if the president, the commander-in-chief, had to send an EAM, literally, from one of the legs of the triad to launch, is it a real message? Can you authenticate the message? And is it dual key, where it's truly two people that say, yep. It's a go? And, trying to recreate some of the roles and the intensity of what that situation may be.
Right.
And being able to get to execution. And just to see it in so many fascinating ways, because you saw it at the field level with longer range missiles, the ICBMs, being able to interact with that community, to interact with a contractor for software, for hardware, just every facet of it that way. You had an awful lot on your plate in terms of managerial and leadership responsibility.
So right off the bat, I'm familiar with that because I actually retired of Strategic Command. And so, yes, everything you just shared is definitely important. And so you did that. And then what happened, Coach?
I got a call when I was a first lieutenant from the academy and said, we'd like for you to come back. And so came back for would have been years 5 and 6, my first 2 years as a captain here to the Air Force Academy, and coached during those 2 years and recruited during those 2 years. And one of the assistants on the staff, Jim Grobe, became the head coach at Ohio University. And he asked a few of us that were here at the academy. It was Brian Knorr, it was Billy Mitchell, it was and then he went and asked Tim DeRuiter, who was a 1985 graduate of the academy, if we wanted to join him at Ohio University, and that's exactly what we did.
So you started your team there, and now we see a lot of that team has been part of this Falcon family as well.
Absolutely, and I think, you just kind of knew immediately so much of what we leaned on initially were the lessons that we learned while we were here at the academy.
Wow. So can I pull on that thread a little bit? Now you're here as a captain, you're coaching. Let's talk about the intersections of athletics and academics, because I think that's really important for our listeners to understand how you said earlier those leadership skills translate. So can you talk a little bit more about that, what you saw in the cadets from your perspective as a coach?
Well, I think there are so many different reasons why cadets come to the academy.
Mm-hmm.
There are a good number of them that are either second generation or multi-generational in terms of military families. We probably, I know we do. We have, many that are first generational as far as being, the reason why they chose to come to the academy.
Like you.
And yeah.
Yes.
And yet what's neat is the rewarding part of it, whether it's 7 years later or 15 years later, being able to see how many of them have absolutely thrived once they go on to active duty or even beyond in the civilian sector too. And, it's a process. It truly is. Nobody, if everybody was ready on day one, we wouldn't need a United States Air Force Cadet. We'd commission them right away.
Right.
But during those 4 years, 47 months, the ups and the downs, so many different mistakes that are made, but to learn and to grow from those mistakes, I don't think we can ever take for granted. There's a reason why from really initially, the very first week, there's so many things that are spelled out in terms of our values when it comes to respect for each human being, the work ethic, always give a third effort, the resiliency and the grit part of it, that really that's what we want them to internalize in terms of the fortitude and the character. Mm-hmm. And then we go on to the other skills, when they're here a little bit longer at the academy.
So some of our listeners love when there's shared ways on how they can navigate. You talked about some of those highs and lows, and I'm sure that happens in life, right? Not just on the field, but also academically and all of the different facets of life. So what would be just something you would share with a leader that's helping someone navigate through the highs and lows that's kind of cyclical?
Yeah, I think more than anything else is to be patient, which kind of works a little bit while you're here at the academy initially. So much of it is creating an instant impulse or the instant drive rather than saying, no, we're working with human beings here. Mm-hmm. There are going to be some bumps and some struggles and some adversity, but let's help them realize that what may look like a real challenge, and it is a real challenge, or a real time of difficulty, if you push forward, when you come out the other side, just the additional strength, the confidence, the forever resiliency that you hopefully has become internalized.
I love that, to teach a little bit of patience, because I think in a society that is running so fast, everything is, instantaneous, to teach our cadets, our future leaders, et cetera, just to slow down and really kind of assess. Is that what you mean when you say patience?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you hit the nail on the head. In this day and age, how quickly we can get anything. Mm-hmm. We think we're getting so much instant affirmation with somebody reliked or retweeted something that I said or what, we think that's real affirmation. Where maybe that's not the case in terms of really being best in terms of our well-being.
Right. So maybe can you share a story? And what I'm thinking about is when you talk about patience and affirmation showing in an outcome that is later on, maybe talk through, has that been someone that you've seen come through your program that maybe you thought was, I don't know, and then on the other end, you're just wowed?
Absolutely. I have many examples.
I thought you might.
And the reason why, it's so many other, comparatively speaking, a college football program, how many are bringing a guy in? They're saying in week 1 in June, we're really, in fact, you aren't even, I'll back up. Instead of going to finishing high school the spring semester of your senior year, we're going to bring you in January. So you can get going in classes, you can go through spring practices. That way, maybe we have you ready in the fall to be able to play right away. We're here. It's a different approach.
Yes.
No, you're going to, when you first get here, you're going to start basic training. And you're going to go through 5.5 weeks. We get you one tremendous haircut. No, you're not going to have your phone or really any interaction with any kind of outside source. Whether it's media, whether it's any kind of personal interaction, unless you handwrite a letter. You got a pen right there and know exactly where to put the stamp on the top right-hand part of the envelope. And so the foundation that you see here, probably specifically to the football part of it, it takes a little longer because there is that basic training prior to the freshman year or 4-degree year. There is the first 3 weeks of June of going through CST or what used to be SERI, prior to the 3-degree year. And so football-wise, a lot of times maybe you don't see the real capability of that person until their 2-degree year. And so the lessons that you have to share, I think, especially with 4-degree players, that, hey, it takes time. But you can cite so many examples of guys that didn't play a snap their freshman year. Maybe only played in 3 games their 3-degree or sophomore year. And whoa, P.J. Ramsey, his senior year as a first-team all-conference player. But why? You go back. Incredibly hard worker, sharp, cared about other people, and was incredibly committed to whatever his craft was at that time, whether it was school during the academic time, being a good cadet, or certainly when it came to football during those times, whether it was in the weight room, meeting rooms, just the commitment that way.
Yes, that's a great example. How do you instill in your players the importance of those same standards off the field?
I think it is more difficult than ever for a teenager, for all human beings. And, the amount of distractions that are present for all of us. There's a lot more items happening on Facebook. There's a lot more media. There's a lot more judgment. That to have the discipline to be able to put that aside at times, boy, that can become a strength for you later in life if you do develop that. And there are times where you have to turn your phone off. I think the other part is you don't take for granted that everybody understands the values that maybe our team is, each team member is going to be committed to as a part of our program. And I think you have to be very clear in terms of what those standards are, how you treat people. We're here to get an education. We're going to be completely committed to help you develop as a football player. But most importantly, when you're done playing football, whether that's at age 19, 22, or 32, we want to put you in a position where you can do tremendous work, whether it's in our Air Force or our Space Force. You can be a really strong contributing member of our community or whatever community in which you live, and to be a quality member of your family, whatever that may be in your personal life too.
Right. So you talked about some of those standards that you expect from the team. Can we shift a little bit to some of your philosophy on leadership that you've developed over the years, right? I'm sure that it's continued to evolve. You mentioned that you're learning all the time. What are some of those things?
I'll say this. I think you have to be right alongside your people. Goodness, maybe 125 years ago during the Industrial Revolution, everything could be top down and dictated and say, you have to be here from 7 to 3, you're working that shift, or you have the late night shift from 11 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's not where you're going to get the most out of people, and certainly not where they're going to develop the most either. I think you have to know your craft incredibly well. even the nuances. Certainly strategically there has to be a vision, but even tactically, they know if you know your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I just can't say enough about getting to know each individual human being too.
How do you lead your staff so that they carry that same level of care for their, the cadets and the team members?
Yeah, awesome question. I think first of all, during the hiring process, was making it quite clear in terms of every place has challenges or obstacles. Certainly, if you come to the Air Force Academy and you coach football, you're a recruiter for the United States Air Force Academy, the admission standards. Hey, we're looking for somebody that's an exceptionally strong student, has a good bit of aptitude leadership-wise. And the other part of it is, there are some things that are involved here in terms of conduct, in terms of personal choices. And yes, you are going to serve, because often with a good number of the 17-year-olds with whom we interact, initially they don't know that.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So how do you communicate the importance of those, I think, the values and the standards so that it does kind of reach them?
Well, I think more than anything else, I think you have to be as much as you possibly can involved in the inner workings of how the day-to-day goes. And I don't think you can be distant. I don't think you can say, well, it's a little bit of the CEO mindset where I'll just tell people what to do. That doesn't work real well in this day and age, especially. People want to know why. They want to know the logic behind a good number of the choices or decisions that we make for our program. And I think deep down they appreciate that. I think you tend to get a little more buy-in when that's the case. And the other part, quite frankly, is trying to create an environment. Not everybody feels comfortable this way, but where they will bring thoughts and ideas to you. The cadets do, and realizing that's embraced because they have some pretty unique perspectives or adjustments. I mean, you're going to forever evolve and adapt, and that's a must. I think in any environment, really in any industry in this day and age too.
Right. I mean, leadership is 360, right? Up, down, sideways. Can you share something that you learned in leadership from a cadet?
Well, a bunch. I mean, the number of things they bring us. I remember one year we were playing at Army.
Okay.
This was in 2008, and it was a 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff, which is 10 o'clock Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And so we left on Friday. We really didn't get any rest at all on Friday afternoon, and our meetings were a little bit hurried on Friday evening. And a couple of the junior cadets after the season came up and said, "Coach, would there be any way we could maybe leave on Thursday evening after practice so we had all day Friday to carry forth on a regular schedule like we usually are accustomed to, the 24 hours leading up prior to the game?" I was like, "You're on it. Let me go see what we can get done." And it did not compromise in terms of more missed classes.
Mm-hmm.
They were better rested, and they played better as a result. And so I think more than anything else is do everything you can, again, to make people feel welcome, to bring different perspectives, especially when it makes our team better.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great example. And I think, our listeners are always looking for, I might not be the most seasoned leader. I might not be in charge, so I don't feel like I have a voice. But I think if it sounds like what you're sharing are good leaders, make it an open field for
absolutely.
Feedback.
I think more than ever how important that is. And there's so many different viewpoints and perspectives. And like I share with the guys all the time, like I try to meet with the seniors frequently and just say, don't assume that I know. If the there's not hot water in the showers and we aren't practicing good hygiene, boy, that's going to affect maybe having more viruses.
Right.
Something that simple, you got to bring it to me.
That's wonderful. So you make that open. I think that communication is key for sure. Wow, this has been really incredible. So tell some of our listeners, because I think, a lot of times people will assume, well, this is what they do. This is all they do. What are some of the things that you enjoy outside of football?
I think being with your family, trying to soak in as much of an imprint, to be with your own. I have kids.
Yes.
That time and how much you learn from your own son and daughter. I've been beyond fortunate to have an incredible co-pilot with Amanda. Just how bright she is, how caring she is, how perceptive, how much she's helped me coach. Might not necessarily be X's and O's, but just when it comes to, maybe how people are doing.
Right.
And, and then the other part is I think the level of fitness. To be committed that way. Is physical fitness a part of it? It is. Trying to create some balance and perspective. You got to carve out a little time, even in the heat of the season, where that's the case. And
how do you do that?
Well, I think you got to read. That's one way. For many, it is for us. Is there a spiritual balance there? There is. I think the other part of it is still trying to engage with people, and because they bring you so many ideas and thoughts that may not be necessarily that are in our working field, but certainly we can carry over. Is it a new use of a technology? Is it a different way to look at nutrition, just because of how important that is? And so I love learning. I mean, and I think there are so many awesome examples that way. And we went on a trip for 15 days here in early June, Amanda and I did, and we tried to digest as much World War II, Cold War, Holocaust in Europe. And it was just astounding how much we were able to learn during that journey.
Wow. What did you take from that?
Well, we were in Berlin. We spent 2 nights there in East Berlin. What was East Berlin? Right. And certainly you could recognize a good number of the buildings that were formerly in old East Germany. You could see some of the influence of the infrastructure and commitment, whether it was to business or facilities on the east side that's been made. That was unbelievable. Wow. To go to Nuremberg, to go to Dachau, just how stunning it truly was. To go to Munich and then to come back up through down into Austria and Switzerland. We ended up in Amsterdam and went through the Anne Frank House.
Oh my gosh.
And more than ever, you realize how important it is what we do at the United States Air Force Academy. The commitment to freedoms, to how you interact and treat people, the maturity and the respect, and how I believe even more strongly we need the United States Air Force Academy and the commitment to the values that we have here. And not only in our air and our Air Force and our Space Force, but really to carry that forth into our communities and throughout our society.
Oh my goodness. What a trip to reinforce so much of what you live every day.
Absolutely.
And help instill in others every day. Wow. Maybe you can share with us as a coach that's, we talk about many successes that's come with a lot of learning. What have you learned about yourself through the years?
Well, it's not about you, and I think especially as time passes, if you really want your team to perform at the highest level possible, goodness, it's got to be about the people that are especially at the front line. And that's our players that are blocking and tackling. It's our coaches that are providing that individualized instruction. And are we doing everything we can to support them that way? And I think we all do in all of our roles. We know if somebody really does have a strong, sincere interest in helping us achieve or to win. You know that, and that's where you want to gravitate towards, because they're going to help you change and transform, and trying to provide that to not only our young men that are a part of our team, but the number of young women that we have that support, whether they're as cadet managers or working in recruiting. It takes everybody.
It really does. I think that's really powerful, because it's interesting when you know that someone believes in you. It's almost like you're capable of more than you ever thought possible.
So true. I mean, I think we all can cite examples, whether it was a loved one, a family member, a teacher, a coach, somebody that you just knew, they believed in you.
Right.
And that's how you grow. That's how you change. Are there going to be failures and mistakes? Absolutely. Yet as we go through life, we can't be afraid to make a mistake. You know, if you're flying an F-16, there are going to be some mishaps. Yes. And yet hopefully you don't repeat those mistakes, because you learn from them, and that's how you grow.
Right. Coach, this has been amazing. Sometimes our listeners also want to learn something interesting that maybe you would share with us that you haven't shared with others. Is there a hidden talent or something that is unique to Coach Calhoun?
Oh, I don't know if there's a hidden talent. I'll say this. I absolutely love what I do. I've felt that way all along. And yet maybe even more today than ever before. Just because now that you've done it for a few years, there have been a good number of young men, maybe you were in their home when they were 17 years old, and now you see them when they're 28 or 29, and they're flying F-35s, or they're your team doctor like Travis Decker is currently.
Wow.
Or guys that are working out in the corporate world. And so you see, and the kind of fathers or maybe husbands they are, that's quite impactful. In fact, it just tells you we got to go even harder here. So, I think the other part that's so unique about the Air Force Academy too is we have to develop a warrior mindset, and are there times where we are in an office setting? Yeah, there's a different demeanor there that you have to have in terms of the maturity and how you work together. Yet at the same time, we're developing young men and young women that are ready to be right at the tip of that spear too. And, that's a requisite. As part of our work is to prepare them to, if you have to eliminate an enemy or an object, to be in the right frame of mind to do that legally and to operate it in a way where you're following a candid order.
Right. So you didn't share with us a hidden talent, but we do know you love what you're doing. No, that I'm just teasing. So, Coach, is there anything so 2 more things. One, I'm going to ask you if there's anything I didn't ask that you really want to make sure our listeners hear. And then we always like to leave our listeners with like very specific kind of leadership lessons. So I'll just ask you the first one. What haven't I asked you that's on your heart to speak about today?
Well, I'll say this. I think the other part that's so important for a service member or a cadet is there somebody else that's been instrumental, whether it was in their upbringing or a co-pilot. I mentioned Amanda earlier, how invaluable they are to the performance of a person. And boy, you just know there's somebody in that, whether it was a parent, mom, dad,
Sibling
maybe
too.
a sibling,
Right?
a coach. Getting to know them a lot of times helps you too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much insight that a parent provides me so often, even when a cadet is at the academy. That's why you want to do everything you can. We talked about lines of communication,
Right.
of trying to create that two-way dialogue. I know a lot, and it happens frequently in college coaching. There are a good number of coaches say, man, those parents are something else. I'm like, nah, I love my parents. They share a lot with me that helps me not only coach their son,
Mm-hmm.
but it helps me develop and grow their young man too.
I love that. All right. Well, I know our listeners are really excited to hear what are going to be those key items you want to share in leadership. But before we get there, I want to make sure that we provide a note of thanks to all of you listening to Long Blue Leadership. This podcast drops every 2 weeks on Tuesdays and is available on all your favorite podcast apps. Be sure to send us your thoughts and comments at socialmedia@usafa.org and listen to past episodes at longblueleadership.org. So, Coach, I want to get back to you because this is all, and I know you said it's not about you, but today it's about you, Coach, and we're really appreciating this. What do you want to leave our listeners with? Because we have leaders of all levels, and I think that's the whole point, right? You can be a leader at all levels, but what are some of the best leadership lessons you'd like to share today?
Well, you need to be doing something that you love, that you're passionate about. And the other part is, again, just the involvement that you have with your people. And, to get in there literally where you're hip to hip and shoulder to shoulder. And I think sometimes, whether you're in a leadership role or maybe you have a certain rank, you think, well, I can't do that in order to maintain my distance professionally. And I wholeheartedly disagree. I think you have to be able to operate from different perspectives as a leader. I think clearly you can still articulate and live the standards that are a part of your operation or your unit or your football program. But again, it's about your people. It's about people.
Right.
And that's what makes it go. I heard somebody say once, if there were only computer chips or ones and zeros, the binary, whatever, then maybe we would need these standards or we wouldn't have some of these behavioral challenges. Yet we'd be really, really limited, not only in the growth, but the talent that gets to come to the surface. And it's our job to identify potential attributes and to see them sprout, and to see them change, and to see them grow. And it's the greatest reward there is to help another human being, not only maybe in the future be their quality of life, or to help them professionally, or maybe with a specific task. And that's what real leadership, that's what real coaching is.
That's outstanding, Coach. Thank you. You've done this a couple times, Coach.
No, not like this.
Oh, well, I appreciate you doing this then. I mean, I think just kind of opening up. Was there anything else that was on your mind, though?
No.
I didn't want to focus on asking you about the season and what's going on.
No, that's not what we want, right? Yeah. I think probably, I think we hit the main points. I mean, you talk about leadership, the breadth and the depth of what's involved there. You could go on and on and on and on about how important so many things are, but I think we hit the key points, or at least from kind of the way I see it.
Okay.
All
right. I want to make sure that we're able to capture your thoughts on leadership and the way you feel really good about it, because I think you're going to have listeners hanging on to every word.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Definitely.
If you need anything else, let me know.
Oh, definitely will, Coach.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Long Blue Leadership. The podcast drops every 2 weeks on Tuesdays and is available on all your favorite podcast apps. Send your comments and guest ideas to us at socialmedia@usafa.org and listen to past episodes at longblueleadership.org.